so this is the guy the Republic has to blame for losing. Jango Fett is one of the most feared bounty hunters in the galaxy, which is funny because the movies barely tell us anything about him. That's where Star Wars Bounty Hunter comes in. Star Wars Bounty Hunter is a story driven game that, well being Legends, is widely known as one of the best Star Wars games to ever be made. So today I'm playing it for the first time to find out if that statement's true or if nostalgia is doing all the work. This game is a classic, so I'm sure it'll be super forgiving for new players. Yeah, very forgiving. Right away, this game had me locked in and ready to go. Being a Star Wars game, you obviously need the amazing yellow words slowly moving up over the space background, the inspiration for many middle school PowerPoint presentations. We start off in a fight against a huge beast that was all bark and no bite. The camera lock and dodge felt okay, but I was skeptical on how it would feel with other enemies because if you have ever played PlayStation 2 games, they were always a little harder to lock on to enemies than modern day games. It did feel a little clunky, but I got used to it quickly, or so I thought. To be honest, as I progressed, the boss battles felt relatively easy, especially the first fight against the rival bounty hunter, but my main fights were against the camera and the jetpack. The jetpack controls were very weird, you could not move up while moving forward, and vice versa. Another interesting thing they put into the game, although it does seem like a given, is bounty hunting. This was a very interesting part of the game I did right away, but got kind of tired and it felt really repetitive and too easy after about 15 bounties. You basically scan each person, civilian or enemy, and see if there is a bounty posted. It will state whether they need to be brought in dead or alive, and if you do the incorrect option, you risk getting either less money or no bounty at all. I think this was maybe the most fleshed out in terms of how it works, but I think they got it to work and they did not have much ambition to make the bounties much more interesting than just maybe chasing the person and tying them up. No freaky. The iconic dual pistols Django had really did feel like they were accurate, although sometimes it felt like I was using non-lethal rounds with the amount of hits it takes to kill some of the enemies. There were a few times where I could not tell if I had missed or if the game just decided to turn into the NBA refs and the villains were Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It felt like the bullets would just disappear right on the person I was aiming at. Like I was shooting at Houdini at anyway, you get the point. The gunplay was fun though. I do like the fact that both sides would flinch if hit too many times or by too powerful of an attack, such as a rocket or a heavy attack from heavy villains. My personal favorite weapon was the flamethrower though. It honestly carried me through the cult levels and I'm thankful for that. The enemies did feel pretty well balanced, again minus boss fights. Honestly, some of the grunt groups, like in the prison escape for example, felt like they were more dangerous than the other bounty hunters we are competing against. The main fight at the end was maybe my only issue. Some attacks felt like you couldn't dodge them even if you timed it correctly or if you did the jetpack dodge. Which, if that was the intention, then fair enough, but I kind of felt that was not the case. I think the fights overall felt fine. They were maybe a bit underwhelming at times, but this is Jango Fett, so I do get where they were coming from. Another issue was power-ups. They were another interesting addition to the game, but I felt most of them were extremely pointless and lasted about as long as I do during soccer. I'm out of shape. Yeah. Another issue is if you died and picked one up, you were not able to pick it up again. For example, towards the middle of the game, you have to fly across 3 separate platforms, which is doable without the jetpack power-up, but that took me 10 minutes alone, which I will say was mostly user error, but I think some of that comes down to the detection of some of the edges on the platforms. I assume this was not an issue in the pre-remaster, as the games did feel a bit more rounded out back in the day, but who knows. Combat I think overall was fun. Maybe not as exciting as I had expected, but it didn't upset me that much, which some of these older story games tend to do. I think the set designs were very good for the time. Each place did feel like it was supposed to, and maybe that's just the remaster talking, but it was a lot of fun, especially Coruscant where the upper and lower parts were very well designed. The big problem I have is that it never gave you any general direction on where to go. Sometimes it was just an open area with 0 exits besides a teeny tiny little exit that doesn't load until you are basically on top of it. Some of the doors don't detect you're nearby and don't open right away, and again, not to mention, there's probably like 80 other doors in most of those rooms, so you have to check every single individual one before you find the right one. There was no directional guide, so at points I was just wandering in the wrong direction for like 15 to 20 minutes before accidentally stumbling across where I was supposed to be. One of the levels on Coruscant has a hidden vent in one of the lobby rooms that I walked past 3 times. Again, some might be user error, but having no clue where to go took me out of the game sometimes. When I did find the right path, I was just annoyed at that point. I think this really affected the pacing for me. Although, yes, it is already a shorter game, the extra time spent bounty hunting the next room, not even a person, made me forget what was even happening and made the story hit a little bit less. I've talked a lot about the negatives, but there was actually a lot of positives in this game. I think one thing that could really just be praised is the story and cutscenes throughout the whole game. They are really interesting and constantly keep me wanting more, or even just a TV show slash movie based on the game or just on Jango Fett. Characters like Raz, Jango, Zam, Dooku, Kamari Vosa, Montrose, just to name the main characters, are written very, very well. Honestly, this game not being canon is incredibly sad, as this story is super cool. The writing is top tier and honestly kind of backpacks some of the gameplay. They went into great detail about topics that were not talked about enough in the movies, such as how Jango and Dooku met, how Jango got a start, and really who Zam Wessel is, minus 3 seconds of screen time in a chase scene through Coruscant. Very underrated scene, by the way. But yeah, moving on. Getting to see a human side of Jango Fett and how he got to the point of wanting a son in the first place is really interesting. Also, how we got Dooku to agree to him having a son is insane. The meeting between Tyrannus and Jango at the end is super cool, showing Jango's cat-like reflexes with his blaster in real time and Dooku's trust in him not shooting him. Roz was a personal favorite of mine. Getting to see more Toydarians outside of Watto was so cool. She was a big part of the human side of Jango, not the killer side, but you know, the side that has this genuine soft spot for her and how much he cares. The scene where he finds her towards the end is genuinely, although extremely sad and makes me super happy to get rid of Montrose. It was so well written. The Bando Gora cult was super cool as well. It had shown how there was a different cult and the Sisters of Dathomir were not the only cult or magic group in the galaxy. I think Kamari Vosa is such a cool villain and honestly made a great stepping stone for Ventress. Although I do think Ventress would dogwalk Vosa, but that's another video. The locations of the games I am going to really remember, mostly for good reasons, but it does have a couple parts that will live in my nightmares. What? Overall, the set design and storytelling really moved me and made me very happy to keep coming back to the game. Now for my final verdict on the game. I think the game had way more highs than lows. I think my final score is going to be a 7 out of 10. It's clunky, it's glitchy, and it absolutely shows its age, but the story, the characters, the locations, and the bounty hunting itself are still genuinely cool. I don't regret playing it, and I'd even play it again. Just probably for achievements, but I definitely would play it again. If you enjoy me playing this game for the first time, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and let me know what game you want me to see me play next. I'm open to playing plenty of old classic games that I haven't played, Star Wars or unrelated, such as like Halo, stuff like that. Let me know in the comments what I should try next, and hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Hope you enjoyed, and peace out.